talked about the NHL. I'm not going to do a Mile High report per se. However, the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic once again run the conversation, or at least the start of the conversation about the NBA and professional basketball. Niko and I have been very outspoken for the fact that the national media pays no attention or tries to push a narrative that Nikola Jokic is not the MVP or the best player in the league. I was catching up on the local Denver sports radio show, and they had a national media member on. Mark Schlereth had the connection with Stephen A. Smith, pretty much the guy, the NBA guy that wasn't a player or anything at ESPN, and he had some interesting comments to say about Nikola Jokic. So I grabbed his comments that he made about the MVP, and I'm gonna go ahead and play his comments that he made about Nikola Jokic regarding his play so far in the Nuggets season. So this is Stephen A. Smith on Nikola Jokic being the MVP and best player in the NBA.
They ain't Jamal Murray. They ain't Michael Porter Jr. And somehow, someway, the same things that Jokic was doing when they were there, he's doing. They're not there. It's not even more. I'm like, wait a minute. I can't, in good conscience, ignore what this guy brings to the table on a night-in, night-out basis. I mean, he throws up shots or all off angle, off tilt, or whatever. It just goes in, the pinpoint passes, the rebounds, and he wears you down. His IQ is off the charts. I'm just like, this guy is a worthy MVP, and there is no doubt about it. And so for me, it's just about doing my job and being as fair as I possibly can be, and no matter what, never failing to recognize the greatness that we're witnessing. And, obviously I think Mike Malone.
Needless to say, that was surprising when I heard it. When I heard it coming out of Stephen A. Smith's mouth, it was even more shocking. Those are very much things that Niko and I have been saying the entire time that we've had this show. Nikola Jokic, whether or not he's playing on a big market team, whether or not his team is the number one ranked, number one seeded team in the NBA, you cannot deny the fact that this season, without Jamal Murray, without Michael Porter Jr., Nikola Jokic is playing at a better pace than he did in the season in which he's the reigning MVP, and his team is still within the playoff picture now. They've had two pretty bad losses in a row. Sunday night to Boston was absolutely garbage with the quote-unquote effort that the starting five put out on the floor, and Michael Malone made the decision that not only was he going to punish those guys for not putting forth the effort, he was going to start the second unit in the second half. So Nikola Jokic and Aaron Gordon, all the starters, Bones Highland, were not in at the start of the third quarter, and that was a statement from Michael Malone to all of his players, especially his starting unit, that said, hey, if you're not going to put forth effort, I don't care if you were losing by 25 like they were at one point in the game, if you're not going to put forth effort, I'm not going to put you on the floor. So it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Now, you don't want the Nuggets to be in the play-in situation. In a perfect world, you'd like them to maybe play themselves up into a 3 or a 4 seed, and I might as well just start talking about it now. In the NBA Western Conference, the Phoenix Suns are the number one team, and they have the most separation between them and the next person in front of them. From 2 to 7, there's about 4 games that separate those teams. Right now, Denver is in a tie, and I think they lose the tiebreaker with Minnesota, so they would be the 7 seed in the play-in tournament, and Minnesota would be the 6 seed, the final team just into the playoff bracket. In a perfect world, you would hope that the Nuggets are able to figure themselves out. Maybe you get Jamal Murray or Michael Porter Jr., maybe both back, and you hope that you can end the season on a tear, maybe play yourself into that 6th to 5th seed. I don't know if you're going to be able to have enough time to get yourself all the way back up to 3, but it's not outside of the realm of possibility to say if this Nuggets team gets hot, they're just as good as any of the other 6 teams besides the Phoenix Suns in front of them. So that's my take on where the Nuggets stand currently and where the Western Conference pretty much stands as a whole. And I'm not necessarily sold on the Suns. It's interesting because they are the best team in the West, and they have been the best team in the West all season. However, for some reason in the playoffs, I just don't see them as a threat. I mean, yeah, they beat the Nuggets. They swept the Nuggets last season, but it doesn't seem like it carried over at all to the season. I'm not scared of them the way I would be scared of Golden State after their massive run, or any of those other great teams. This does not feel like a great team. So yes, they might be the 1 seed. They could be a 1 seed that has trouble in the first round, and we maybe see them in a second round exit situation. I don't know how they're going to be able to handle being the hype going into the playoffs, because remember, they were the number 2 seed in the West last year. Utah was the number 1. In the Eastern Conference, Miami actually just took over the number 1 spot in the Eastern Conference. Now they're 47-24. It doesn't really mean much because right now they're only 6 games separating the number 1 and the number 6 seed in the Eastern Conference. So Miami's able to battle themselves back up into the 1 spot. They're 3 games ahead of Milwaukee. The Eastern Conference, yes, those teams that you don't. The Eastern Conference has all the teams that I think you don't want to see in a 7-game series. I don't think you want to see Milwaukee in a 7-game series because Giannis can wear on you, and they have the guys to defend you and lock you up, make you play a dirty style of basketball. Same thing with Miami. Philadelphia, I'm not sold on Philadelphia. I don't know what to tell you. James Harden's already starting to cause issues. That loss to the Nuggets was a real telling thing about the Philadelphia 76ers. They have absolutely no mental toughness, and if you get under their skin at all, they're pretty much done for. So that's kind of where I'm standing on the Eastern Conference. It's when Nico gets back, I'll have to ask him what he thinks is making it. If the East is more competitive because they have better teams, better competition, better parity, or is it just a lack of talent overall? It could be that all these teams are just really bad, and right now Miami's the best of the bad teams. 47-24 is not a very impressive record to be carrying on number 1 seed this late into the season. Like, that's a 4th to 6th seed record in a normal year. But for whatever reason, the Eastern Conference has been a gauntlet, or at least they've treated each other as a gauntlet this season. That's about as much insight as I can give you on NBA basketball. I'm going to transition over to March Madness, discuss the big upsets happening in the first 2 rounds, and then maybe look ahead to my predictions into the Sweet 16. That's coming up here to finish up Right in the Pine Week 5 via the Far End of the Bench podcast. Well, how about that right in? Guess that's why they call it Sin City. I think that's what we should start saying about March Madness. We should come up with a parody line for that. Maybe that'll be our first t-shirt. How about that right in? Guess that's why they call it March Madness. It was wild. I'm not gonna lie. And yes, I was just now watching the second period of the Minnesota Wild versus the Golden Knights, and that's why Wild was stuck in my head. March Madness is what we're talking about. Round of 64, round of 32 took place over the past weekend, and nobody has a perfect bracket left. I think after the first 3 quarters of the games were played, 17 out of 13 million that had been submitted were still even close to perfect. So we'll talk about the major upsets that happened in the round of 64 to start off with. And we got to start with the very first one. There was 3 upsets of the day that happened all in the same day. So we'll start with the first one. Richmond defeats number 5 seed Iowa 67-63. Nico was pissed. Nico was texting me during this game. He had Iowa into his Sweet 16, so that was a tough way for him to start off. And Richmond, kudos to them, didn't end up panning out for them. You got smacked against Providence in the following round. But hey, you got the win over a team in Iowa that a lot of people were saying was picking up momentum during the Big Ten Championship tournament. And Nico even said it, that's kind of their MO. They catch fire in the conference tournament or towards the end and win the conference championship. And then all of a sudden they turn around and lay a goose egg in the NCAA tournament. That was your first 12-5 upset of the NCAA March Madness tournament. Number 11, Notre Dame takes down number 6, Alabama. That was my dad's national champion. 78-64 was the score in that game. Alabama is still confirmed a football school. Number 11, Michigan defeats number 6, Colorado State. That one was mainly in there. That was just difficult to have to deal with. Unfortunate that the Rammies weren't able to put up much more of a fight. Roddy White, though. Not Roddy White. I can't think of the guy's name. Nico tweeted about it. I'm going to have to figure that out now. It's going to bug me. I'm just going to cut this. I paused it here. I'm going to cut this out of the video.
I have my notifications turned off on Twitter, so I haven't been getting your messages that you've been sending me to retweet your tweets. I turned it back on. I turned them off because remember I said that guy was like spamming our account at fucking 2 a.m. in the morning?
Mm-hmm.
That's when I turned it off. I forgot to turn it back on.
Okay. David Roddy is the name that I was looking for. David Roddy, big time player for the Rams, pretty much the guy that led them to the NCAA tournament this season. Nico seems to think that it's not just Nico. There's talks surrounding him that he might be the next Jimmy Graham or Antonio Gates, or maybe, I mean, you could even throw Julius Peppers in there. Peppers played football in college as well, but a guy that can make the transition from basketball star to possibly tight end. And CSU already has Trey McBride coming out into this year's draft as a tight end, and now I'm going to have to pull up his name again. David Roddy. David Roddy is a name that people should pay attention to. If your team is maybe, if you got a fun coaching staff that's willing to take a chance, that's why Nico thinks that it might end up being the Broncos, because Nathaniel Hackett's always looking for a way to get a leg up on everybody else. David Roddy could be the guy that you bring in to maybe add a little bit of depth to your tight end position. He's not going to be able to bring much blocking wise. I'll say he plays basketball in a very aggressive manner. So it's not to say that you can't teach him how to block, but he's not going to come in knowing that right away. He's going to come in knowing how to find open space, and he's very athletic. And when you add those few things in together, think of Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez was a basketball player first, became a Hall of Fame tight end. Antonio Gates, same thing. Jimmy Graham, same thing. Could David Roddy be the next one? Who knows? That's unfortunate. Michigan has ended up going on quite a bit of a run after that, so no shame that the Rams lost. Michigan is into the Sweet 16. It's just weird because that was like the main talk about CSU going into the tournament, and I texted Nico and I asked him point blank, what is like the ceiling for this CSU Rams team? He said they'll be able to win the first game maybe, but after that it's going to be an absolute shit show. And Michigan ended up beating them, and now Michigan turned around and knocked out another big time, and then knocked out number 3 Tennessee out of the SEC to set up a date with Villanova in the Sweet 16. So, yeah, it sucked for CSU. And then the last one, biggest one of the weekend, number 15, St. Peter's out of Garden City, New Jersey, the Peacocks. I'm a peacock. You got to let me fly on this one. They flew over the Kentucky Wildcats, 85-79. Coach Cal's Wildcats no longer in the tournament. St. Peter's actually pulled off another upset in round 2, so they're into the Sweet 16. Also, we're going to be making, I'll go through my predictions of the Sweet 16 after we talk about the round of 32 upsets, but to finish off that first round, St. Peter's taking out a blue blood program in Kentucky, and Coach Cal now, that's a big thing to have happen. Kentucky is a basketball school. The way Alabama is a football school, Kentucky is a basketball school. You'd think a coach of the caliber of John Calipari, a guy who's brought a ton of success into your program, maybe not as recent as you might have liked, but a guy who's been there and established the blue blood culture that you do have, he's now going to be looked at as a guy who's going into the hot seat because Kentucky is so gung-ho about tournament success. And this is a bad example. It could happen to anybody. It happens it's not as rare as it used to be. The high seeds can come in, especially in basketball, where if a couple guys get hot from 3, it could be a long night. If your shooters go cold and the other team gets hot for 3, even just on a 5-minute run, it could be about an 18-point swing. And in a game like basketball, in a tournament like March Madness, where you have a very small margin of error in that system, in that if you lose, you're going home, it could happen to anybody. So there's no necessarily shame in what happened to the Kentucky Wildcats. And the March Madness, it's great, but I think they can handle the media a little bit differently. These are we talk about college football players maybe being a little bit too harsh in media sessions, the reporters being a little bit too harsh with college football players. Those are at least guys that are at minimum 20 to 23. These are true 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids after March Madness, and I saw some of the questions that they were asking the Kentucky players, like, what do you think caused this? And in the moment, like, it's tough to talk about. You don't want to have to, you can't throw anybody under the bus, but you also, it's a team sport, so you can't take all of the responsibility. It was a tough situation for those kids to be put in, and now Coach Cal, I think, is going to be looked at as a coach who's on the hot seat. Kentucky is either going to have to make some noise next year in the tournament, or we might be seeing the end of an era in Wildcat basketball. That was all the major upsets in the round of 64. In the round of 32, North Carolina defeated Baylor, the reigning national champs, 93-84 in overtime, so the Tar Heels did end up making a lot more noise than I anticipated. I had them losing in the first round to Marquette. Obviously wrong about that, but nobody expected them to come out and beat Baylor, especially a team as athletic as Baylor is, and handle them as well as they did in overtime. Iowa State defeats number 3 Wisconsin, 54-49. Wisconsin had that great regular season. We all could have seen this coming. The faltering down the stretch of the regular season, having to share the Big Ten regular season championship, not making any kind of noise in the Big Ten championship tournament, and then you come in and you're playing a team in Iowa State where you got the 11-6 upset that you wanted. This is the easiest matchup that you could have had in your bracket, and you let an Iowa State school come out and absolutely punk you. If you get beat by Iowa State in anything other than wrestling, you have no business doing anything that year. I'm sorry if you're a Cyclone fan, but other than wrestling, there is absolutely no success surrounding the sports of the Iowa State University program. And right now, we're seeing the Cyclones in the Sweet 16 defeating a number 3 seed and a number 6 seed on their way doing it. Number 15, St. Peter's knocked off number 7, Murray State, 70-60. And then the final upset, one that I'm not too happy about because I had Auburn losing in my national championship. Miami, number 10 seed, defeats the Tigers out of the SEC, 79-61. And the Hurricanes get into the Sweet 16 for this year as well. I'm still in the running. I'm going to go ahead, before I talk about the Sweet 16, I guess I'll run down the standings after the first weekend of the tournament. We had a very high amount of ties going into the round of 32. The round of 32 cleared things out quite a bit. I personally am sitting at 15. I still have my national champion and 3 out of my 4 Final Four, actually 2 out of my 4 Final Four are left. I have Texas Tech and Villanova as my 2 teams that I predicted into the Final Four left. And then obviously I had Texas Tech beating Auburn in my national championship. I talked about that last week. The other people, I guess the person leading the standings now is Salvaje, 5470. That is my youngest brother, Ed. I know that's just his username and everything that he does. He's basically fluent in Spanish. Don't ask why. He is leading the pack. He has Duke as his national champion. Rakija 2 is the username of the next person in second place. And then we have a 3-way tie in third between Jimmy Hoffa, R5151, and King Ra 231. Those are the top 3 so far. And then people kind of randomly scattered throughout the rest of them. Nico is at 11th currently. And let's see if we'll have any other former guests that I recognize their username here. I don't believe so. Bree is sitting in a tie right now for 42nd. So her national champion was UConn, if you guys can remember. So we're having a lot of fun in the FEOTB Bracket Challenge, competing for that $150 gift card. Oh, there's my dad, sitting at 69th after his national championship loss in the first round. We're all having a lot of fun competing against each other for that $150 Visa gift card in that FEOTB Bracket Challenge. We'll be continuing on doing that, and we'll do more of these fantasy sports type setups. But now, let's get into some predictions for the Sweet 16 before I send you guys off on the final episode of the Ride in the Pine series. Right now, we have Gonzaga, Arkansas, and Duke versus Texas Tech in the West bracket. That Duke-Texas Tech game is important to me because it's going to basically be my deciding factor. Obviously, like, This is the one round of the tournament where I wasn't sure Texas Tech was going to be able to make it through. This is where I started to have some doubts about the Red Raiders. I thought they would be playing Michigan State in this situation. I thought Michigan State would take care of Duke. I wanted to see Coach K get beat by Tom Izzo in his final tournament. Didn't end up happening. I would like this to work out in my favor because I would like to take over a higher spot in the rankings, and I know right now the leading bracket in the group has Duke as their national champion, so if my team is able to eliminate Duke, I would feel a lot better about that. Gonzaga Arkansas, I'm not going to say, obviously Gonzaga is the favorite. I'm not going to say that Arkansas is outmatched. I think that Arkansas can... This is going to be probably a situation, I sense a situation coming on like that national championship game last year, where Arkansas is athletic enough that they can take down these big men, skilled big men for Gonzaga. That's what Gonzaga is built off of. They're not built off of athleticism. They're built off of skill. They're built off of basketball IQ. Arkansas is one of those teams at SEC under Coach Muss where they understand situations as well analytically. They know what makes the most sense, and they're going to put themselves in the best situation to win. Arkansas could very easily upset Gonzaga, but my prediction would be a Gonzaga-Texas Tech matchup in the Elite Eight. In the East bracket, we have North Carolina taking on UCLA, battle of two blue blood programs. And then on the other side of that East bracket, Purdue versus St. Peter's. If you're Purdue, be wary of these St. Peter's Peacocks. But man, did you luck out. Like, think of the teams that you could have had to play in this situation. Let's go back through St. Peter's run. Now, they upset number 2 Kentucky. This could be a 2-3 matchup at the Sweet 16 level between Kentucky and Purdue. You could have had to face Murray State, or the team that Murray State beat in the first round, San Francisco. Those are 2 quality programs that could be dangerous. Now you find yourself in the situation of a 15 seed that is hot. And when 15 seeds get hot, we've seen it in the VCUs, the UMCBs, Florida Gulf Coasts. This is not a situation where if you're the higher seed in the Sweet 16 round, you're confident because your team technically should be talented enough to overcome this challenge. But there's always that thing in the back of your mind. College basketball gets funny that way. Like I said, if a guy gets hot from 3 and your team goes cold offensively, you're out of luck. And there's not much you can do about that. So as a Boilermaker fan, I'd be confident. I have Purdue winning this round. I thought I had them beating Kentucky and beating Baylor in the Elite Eight of this portion of the bracket. So I have faith in Purdue that they'll win, but this upset alert thing, that seed is a little bit warm for me, warm for my liking. I wouldn't be betting on Purdue if that was a game I was looking at. In the South region, Arizona, number 1 seed, taking on Houston, number 5 seed, who upset Illinois in the round of 32. And then the other side of this matchup, Michigan, who upset Tennessee, like I mentioned, taking on Villanova. I have Villanova moving on into my Final Four. So I am actually hoping that Villanova takes care of Michigan. I actually feel a lot better about Villanova beating Michigan than I did about Villanova beating Tennessee. Arizona, Houston, you'd like to think that Arizona, being a team that was number 1 ranked over a majority of the season and has already had their come-to-Jesus loss when they got beat by CU Boulder on the road, they should be able to handle the pressure of this situation. But Arizona is also a team that has struggled as the high seed against these lower teams that they think they should walk right through. So do I trust Arizona mentally? No. But then again, basketball is a game where a freak athlete can take over and start dominating. So do I have faith that Arizona will win? No, but I'm going to bet on Arizona to win. That's my prediction to get into the next round, and I have Villanova winning the other matchup in the South bracket. And then the Midwest to finish out the final prediction for my Sweet 16. Kansas versus Providence. I had Providence beating Kansas initially, so that matchup, I could still pick that matchup right. And then the other game, I had neither of these teams in this situation. I had Wisconsin versus Auburn in the other Midwest Sweet 16 matchup. It ended up being Iowa State and Miami, a 10-11. So the Cyclones and the Hurricanes. Battle of the weather game, Cyclones versus Hurricanes. I like Miami in that matchup. I watched Miami a little bit more than I watched Iowa State in the regular season. They have way better athleticism. I think they're more talented, and I think they're an overall better team. Iowa State's been a good run so far, but if I were going to pick a team that had a double-digit seed going into the tournament that can make a run like this, it would be Miami. So I'm going with the U in that last Elite Eight, or excuse me, Sweet 16 matchup to make it into the Elite Eight.